Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly roundup from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here on a Friday afternoon. I hope you had a wonderful week. I hope it went well for you. I'm very happy to be here myself. It was a busy week, but a very fulfilling week. But I always look forward to our Friday afternoon check-ins in our weekly roundup. Hello to Best Nancy, Alicia K. Mayo, Chihuahua Mama, Crazy Mary Joe, Jadzia. Where is it? I missed it. Kathleen Craghead, Jadzia, Cat Flap Carnage, Law Nerd, Ashley Marie says, let's go. That's right. Everybody's juiced. Everybody's ready. It's Friday. We're ready to wrap up the week, find out what we probably already know, but learn a little bit more about it and get ready for the weekend. Hello to everyone who is watching us on X and Facebook. If you are, please tell us hi. If this is your first time here, welcome. I think you're going to enjoy it. We're going to talk about everything that took place, or as much as we can, in true crime this week. But let me introduce myself. My name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I was there for about 10 years before I left to go into private practice as a criminal defense attorney. And this is Courtroom Confidential. We do our best to present to you both sides of the courtroom. And this is a show we do every Friday called our Weekly Roundup, which is a recap on all things this week in true crime. All right, we're going to jump into it very soon here. But before we do, deep breath. You made it to Friday. As always, hit that like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with anyone that you might think would enjoy it. But let's go ahead and get rolling. A series of Google searches takes center stage in the trial of a Massachusetts man accused of killing his wife, still missing since New Year's Day of 2023. Plus, the accused healthcare executive assassin argues that both his belongings and statements were illegally gained by police. And a Utah father faces multiple felonies for taking his young children on a perilous hike. Is this prosecutorial overreach or something far more sinister? All this and more this week on Courtroom Confidential. As you can tell, a lot for us to dive into this week. As always, we are honored that you have chosen us to bring you these updates. I'm your host, Joshua Ritter, an award-winning Los Angeles prosecutor turned criminal defense attorney with 20 years experience navigating the criminal justice system, bringing you my unique insights from both sides of the courtroom. Today is Friday, December 5th, 2025, and this is your Courtroom Confidential Weekly Roundup. Let's jump in. Trial began Monday for Brian Walsh, the Massachusetts man accused of killing his wife, Anna Walsh, on New Year's Day 2023, dismembering her and discarding her remains in dumpsters across the region. Her body has never been found. Prosecutors told jurors in opening statements that Walsh's marriage was deteriorating as Anna pursued a job in Washington, D.C., while Brian stayed in Cohasset with their 3 sons and awaited sentencing in his federal art fraud case. They also said Anna was having an affair with the man who sold her a townhouse in D.C. Defense attorney Larry Tipton argued it was not a murder, but a, quote, sudden, unexplained death, portraying the couple as having a loving and portraying the couple as loving and planning for their future. He said panic drove Walsh to lie to police and make disturbing online searches. The Commonwealth's first witness, Cohasset Police Sergeant Harrison Schmidt, detailed how the investigation began on January 4th, 2023, when Anna's employer reported her missing. Jurors heard 3 recorded interviews from Walsh from January 4th, 5th, and 7th. On Tuesday, jurors saw evidence of dozens of Grisly online searches. One of his son's tablets, investigators found searches about disposing of a body, cleaning blood, and wiping electronic devices. They later determined the searches came from Walsh's laptop, which was synced to that tablet through a shared Apple account. On Wednesday, jurors saw evidence collected from trash searches, including a hatchet, a hacksaw, and clothing and carpet with red and brown stains. The source of the stains has not yet been identified. Additional physical evidence included Anna's personal items, such as pieces of jewelry and a stained bathrobe and slippers bearing, quote, trace materials. On Thursday, jurors heard from William Fastow, the man who had an affair with Anna. He testified about their relationship and their conversations and how it would affect their families. They also heard a voicemail Brian left him on January 4th of 2023 asking if he had seen her. Walsh faces a first-degree murder charge after agreeing to plead guilty last month to lesser charges of misleading police and willfully disposing of a human body. You can watch the entire trial on our sister channel, Courtroom Confidential Live Trials. Please subscribe now with the link in the description. All right, well, what's happening here? Well, first off, 3 years later, nearly, and this was the best he could come up with. That's kind of sad, but it's actually worse than that. After 3 years of trying to find some explanation as to why he did what he did, the best he could come up with was that her body was suddenly and inexplicably dead in her own bed. No explanation about food poisoning, no explanation about toxins in the air, just a person died, perfectly healthy person died out of nowhere. That's the best he could come up with. But it's worse than that, like I said, because not only is that just simply hard to believe at best, it also has cornered his defense into having no room to argue for anything less. What do I mean by that? Well, if he had said, we got into an argument and one thing led to another and she fell down the stairs, or she fell down the stairs and I had nothing to do with it, or anything else that might have looked like an accident, at least then there's an argument for his attorneys to say, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't believe what Brian is telling you, at the very best, what you can say took place here was something like manslaughter, at the very best. But they don't even have that. It's all or nothing here. There's no argument that they can make about anything less than murder that would find him responsible for her death, because his own explanation, and apparently what he's going to say when he testifies, is that she was just inexplicably dead. Now, let's get to that. The idea that he will most certainly have to testify. I think that's absolutely going to happen. And we've talked many times about how difficult it is for a defendant to testify, even under the best of circumstances, even when they've got a great story, even when they're telling the truth. But here, the kind of tightrope walk that he's going to have to do is going to be something for the history books. He will have to be incredibly emotional with jurors. He will have to be incredibly relatable with jurors. He's going to have to be able to explain his panic. If his story holds up and any one of them is going to believe it, explain his panic in those moments to not call 911, not perform CPR, not go to the neighbors for help, but instead start Googling how to dispose of her body. Explain all of that. That all being said, there is one trick that he might have up his sleeve, but I wonder if he's clever enough to even know about it. And that is, he will have the opportunity to talk about her health history. He could talk about, oh yeah, Anna was having trouble with losing consciousness within the days before this. She was having dizzy spells. All of that can come out of his mouth. He doesn't need to necessarily support that with medical evidence. He could just say, we were concerned about her health. Now, she hadn't gone to the doctor yet. We were talking about that, but we were very worried because she was starting to have moments. What is the prosecutor going to do with that? Of course, cross-examine him. She never went to doctors. You don't have any medical examinations to back this up. But it is one thing, if he's clever, he can use, but I doubt that he will. Finally, on this end of the day, this case is, I think, one of those situations where the prosecution can only snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. In my view, once jurors heard those dozens upon dozens of Google searches, this case was all but over. I can just imagine the jurors slowly closing their textbooks, their notebooks, folding their hands and putting them on their chest as they wait for this whole charade to kind of play itself out. But that doesn't mean the prosecution should get complacent. They should never take the jury for granted. They need to provide this jury with an adequate motive. I think that's incredibly important. So far, they've talked about money with the life insurance. So far, they've talked about jealousy and anger with a potential affair that he had uncovered. But my question to you is, what do you think? What seems like the strongest argument for motive in your view? Please let us know in the comments. Christina Ali says he is definitely buried in those searches. Guilty all the way. I couldn't agree more with you, Christy. Jadzia Dax 1969 says, and he didn't call 911 for help. Come on, right? First instinct for anybody. Arizona Gal, thank you so much. You're always so generous. With the super chat says, hello, CC fam. Happy to be here. You guys rock. Thank you so much for that. Minutes after police approached Luigi Mangione inside a Pennsylvania McDonald's, he told an officer he didn't want to talk, according to video and testimony at Thursday's hearing for the man charged with killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Police were responding to a tip that a customer resembled the suspect in Thompson's killing. Officers approached Mangione, saying someone thought he looked, quote, suspicious. When asked for ID, he handed over a fake New Jersey driver's license, prosecutors said. Officer Tyler Fry testified that when he asked Mangione what brought him from New Jersey, quote, it was something along the lines of he didn't want to talk to me at that time. Mangione later said he was just trying to use the Wi-Fi, according to Fry. Mangione, age 27, has pled not guilty to state and federal murder charges. His lawyers want to block jurors from hearing his alleged statements to police and from seeing items taken from his backpack, including a gun and a notebook. Prosecutors say the 9mm handgun matches the murder weapon. The notebook contains writings about killing a CEO at an investor conference, and Mangione gave police the same fake name used at a New York hostel days before the shooting. Police questioned Mangione for about 20 minutes before reading him his rights. Defense attorneys argue his statement should be excluded because he wasn't Mirandized sooner, and that the backpack evidence should be tossed because officers didn't have a warrant. Prosecutors say the search was justified for safety reasons and that Mangione's statements were voluntary. The hearing, which began Monday and may continue into next week, applies only to the state case, but offers a preview of testimony, video, 911 audio, and other records relevant to both cases. What's happening here? A couple of very fundamental criminal jurisprudence issues at play here. This really works out to be much like a law school crim 101 class. We're dealing with the Fifth and Fourth Amendments. Let's first talk about the Fifth Amendment. Fifth Amendment and Miranda rights. First of all, if there's one thing that we learn from this channel, I hope that it is this. Miranda is not some sort of magic potion. It's not magic words that need to be said before any police interaction can take place or even before an arrest can take place. Miranda simply stands for the prospect of, after a person has been revised of their Miranda rights, police can and will use any statement they make. Before advisement of their Miranda rights, things get a little iffy. And that's what we're dealing with here. Statements that were made before he was advised of his Miranda rights. And can those come in? Well, then the question becomes about custodial interrogation. Was this a custodial interrogation, which is a two-part inquiry? First, was he in custody? This initial interaction at the McDonald's, was he in custody? Well, the defense is saying, yeah, you're not free to go objectively. When you've got officers surrounding you, they've got guns on their hips, badges on their chests, you feel objectively like you're not free to go. Prosecution says that's not true. Many people talk to police. Many people have interactions, consensual interactions with police. That doesn't mean that all of them are in custody for the purposes of Miranda. It's only until you're actually placed in custody, handcuffs on your wrist, put in the back of a squad car, not free to go, that you're not free to go. That's one argument that's going to be made here. The other argument is about, was he being interrogated? Now, this applies to circumstances later on when he is clearly in custody, back in jail, post-arrest, and officers, security personnel at that jail are talking to him. Well, you can be in custody, but not be interrogated. In other words, if you're just having conversations with somebody, wonderful weather we're having today. Do you need another blanket inside of there? Oh, you have to use, you want some more food. None of this is interrogation. And if he starts volunteering information, how he made the gun, why he killed the CEO, things like that. It's all going to come in because Miranda, again, is not invoked. Now let's get to the contents of his backpack. That's the Fourth Amendment. Unreasonable search and seizure. Not just any search and seizure, but unreasonable, abusive search and seizure. Search and seizure without probable cause is what we're talking about here. Well, there's all sorts of probable cause. It's a sliding scale, and officers need certain amounts to do certain things. In this situation, what did they need? Well, remember, they're responding to a call where somebody's saying, I believe we have the CEO assassin sitting here in our McDonald's. That is an armed and dangerous person by any way you put it. Officers are going to be thinking about that with that mindset and operating under those circumstances when they make contact with him. One of the officers testified that the second they spotted him, they knew exactly who he was. So already you have officers who are in a different position than officers just making casual contact with any person on the street. They believe he might be armed, and that's therefore officer safety becomes a primary concern. The other thing at play here is after they make the arrest of him, they're allowed to pat him down and search his person to make sure he doesn't have any weapons. They're allowed to search his backpack as a search incident to arrest and do an inventory of his backpack. And I think that argument of inevitable discovery will probably become very persuasive to the judge. One last point on all of this is this idea that he said he didn't want to talk. And I've heard people saying, well, doesn't that stop everything right there? Shouldn't they have to stop talking to him? No. Why is that? Well, we're not talking about a Sixth Amendment right to counsel here. When somebody's been arrested and they say, I don't want to talk to you without my attorney, yes, they have to stop talking. They have to wait for attorneys to show up before they can start to question someone again. That's according to the Sixth Amendment. But that only applies after you're already in custody. Again, if they're just having a conversation with some person in a McDonald's or some person on the street, and that person says, I don't want to talk to you, that's not some sort of, again, magic rule that the police have to turn around and walk the other way. They can continue to talk to you. In fact, many times they do because they're trying to investigate just who the heck you are. They're asking for ID. Who are you? Why are you here? And why are you handing me bad ID? So I'm not really all that concerned with him saying he doesn't want to talk. Now, doesn't mean he didn't have a right to remain silent. He just chose not to use that right. But what do you guys think? Do you think that prosecutors are on solid footing here or not so much? Please let us know in the comments. Dom's mom, 725, has been a member for 1 month, everybody. I appreciate that. Says, first time catching a live, love your channel. That's very sweet, and I'm very glad that you're here. Appreciate that. Forrest Nelson, 5069, has been a member for 13 months and says, thanks, Josh, Tiff, and wonderful mods. That's very sweet of you. Thank you. And Claire Z30 has been a member for 4 months and says, happy Friday, everybody. Right back at you. Please appreciate that. Utah father Micah Smith, accused of forcing his young children on a dangerous hike that nearly killed one of them, was denied early release from jail Tuesday as he awaits trial. Smith, age 31, faces multiple child abuse and torture charges tied to an October hike in Big Cottonwood Canyon, where he allegedly forced his children, ages 2, 4, and 8, onto the difficult Broads Fork Trail. When storm clouds rolled in, Smith insisted that they move forward and allegedly told his oldest daughter that this was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And when she said she was scared, he told her, quote, you shall not pass. Smith's wife had texted him, urging him to turn around and come home, according to the charging document. That night, Smith and his children got caught in a downpour of snow, hail, and rain. They took shelter under a large rock with an overhang. Smith said he gathered logs, sticks, and rocks to make a windscreen, put pine needles down, and tried to use his body to keep his children warm. Investigators later found a video on Smith's phone where the girl asked, quote, are we going to freeze to death, Daddy? His 2-year-old son had fallen and hit his head before they took shelter. And at one point, the toddler stopped breathing, Smith told investigators. He said he performed CPR on his 2 young sons through the night, and at one point taught his older daughter how to do chest compressions so she could help the boys while he left them in the morning to find help. A The search and rescue team didn't locate them until the next morning. Rescuers said Smith was, quote, behaving oddly and did not appear to be concerned about his children. He allegedly told them one child was dead. His 4-year-old son initially had no detectable pulse and later suffered a stroke in the hospital. Commissioner Todd Olson, acting as judge, issued a protective order barring Smith from any contact with his children. Olson agreed with prosecutors that there is a significant safety risk in releasing Smith, but said the decision is temporary and could be revisited at Smith's next hearing. When Smith asked what he could do to show that he is not a danger or threat, Olson told him that was a conversation for his attorney. Smith is due back in court on Monday. What's happening here? You may remember initial reports about this case were that this man was a courageous father who managed to save his children through a harrowing experience. This is really beginning to sound nothing like that. They were aged 2, 4, and 8. A 2-year-old, a toddler going on a hike like this. I have a 3-year-old. Getting that little girl to hike up the driveway to our house is enough of an adventure for us. I cannot imagine taking your 2, 4, and 8-year-old. Even the 8-year-old is way too young for all of this. This is reckless beyond imagination, and it sickens me. But here's a question for you, and think about this for a moment before you react. Is this torture? Torture is a specific intent crime, meaning you have to prove that that person specifically intended to inflict severe pain or suffering on someone. Not was reckless, not was stupid, not was careless, not was indifferent, but specifically intended to inflict severe pain or suffering. I don't know if that is what we have here. And that is a question that will certainly have to be played out in the court system. But again, to switch to the other side of this argument, that all being said, imagine the nightmare had one of these children died. Under that circumstance, wouldn't this be manslaughter or even a depraved heart murder? I think absolutely so. But I'll put it to you. What do you think? Do you think that this father was acting foolishly, incredibly foolishly, or was he acting criminally? Please let us know in the comments. Therapist says, no, I don't think he intended to do that. It's a really difficult question. Appreciate that, Therapist Curious Kim says, this one leaves me so confused, but so grateful they all survived. I feel like he had some type of mental break, but was able to keep the kids alive. It does seem like he struggled to keep them alive for sure. And Therapist again adds, absolutely foolish. I couldn't agree more. Before we get into the other cases making headlines this week, I'm going to ask you to do me one very small favor, and that is, if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel now. It's completely free, and it's a great way to support the channel. We want to continue to provide you with the highest quality content that we possibly can, and the best way that we can do that is through your support. Also making headlines this week, a Los Angeles County grand jury is now hearing evidence in the death of a teen whose body was found in the trunk of a popular singer's abandoned Tesla, according to law enforcement sources who spoke with the Los Angeles Times. The LAPD has avoided publicly calling 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez's death a homicide, but a recent court filing from an LAPD detective referred to the case as a murder investigation. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman, known for handling some of LA's highest profile murder cases, has reportedly called multiple witnesses before the investigative grand jury. An investigative grand jury is a panel that can recommend charges but cannot return an indictment. The grand jury was in session for several days in mid-November, but it's currently unclear whether the presentation of evidence has concluded. The court petition filed Monday by Detective Joshua Byers successfully argued for a judge to bar the LA County Medical Examiner from releasing autopsy results and other details that would normally be public, saying disclosure could jeopardize the investigation and endanger witnesses. Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Craig Richmond agreed and granted the LAPD's request that the medical examiner's findings be sealed pending another court decision. Representatives for 20-year-old singer David, whose real name is David Anthony Burke, have not issued a statement regarding the convening of the grand jury. Celeste's remains were discovered September 8th after a tow yard worker noticed a strong odor coming from David's impounded Tesla. The car had been abandoned in the Hollywood Hills for weeks. Inside the trunk, detectives found a black bag containing the teen's body. Officials clarified Celeste had not been decapitated or frozen as previously reported by some outlets. LAPD Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton said last week that accountability is coming, adding that detectives are working to secure justice for Celeste and that no one is off the table, including him, referring to David. Contrary to some reports, Hamilton said they have not sought the singer's cooperation. There's been a slow trickle of information from this case, and it has been frustrating and in some cases even misleading, but I am hopeful that we are seeing solid results from this case soon. Kathleen Craighead says justice for Celeste, couldn't agree more. And Patsy240 has become a brand new YouTube member. Welcome aboard, Patsy. A Kentucky judge has denied a motion to dismiss the indictment against the former Lecter County sheriff who is accused of killing a judge in his chambers in September 2024. The court found no misconduct in the grand jury process that led to Sean Mickey Stines' November 2024 indictment. The defense claimed prosecutors presented false or misleading testimony about Stines' mental state and about Judge Kevin Mullins' connection to a federal civil lawsuit involving former Deputy Ben Fields. The lawsuit involves allegations of improper sexual relationships with court participants that occurred in Mullins' chambers. The defense said a detective falsely testified that Mullins had no connection to the suit. They pointed to medical records showing Stines had been diagnosed with an acute stress reaction the day before the shooting and jail records documenting observations of active psychosis after his arrest. But the judge wrote that the video of the shooting, quote, clearly serves as a reasonable ground for belief that defendant intended to cause the death when he shot and killed Judge Mullins. The judge ruled that the Commonwealth satisfied its burden of presenting evidence for probable cause, and any alleged omissions or misrepresentations would not have changed the grand jury's decision to indict. Stines' defense previously indicated he plans to argue extreme emotional disturbance and insanity at trial. He remains in custody on a murder charge that could carry the death penalty. The saying goes that you can indict a ham sandwich, and now we know that once you have, there's not much that the ham sandwich can do about it. Chihuahua Mama says, this one puzzles me. So interested. It puzzles me as well. And Best Nancy has been a member for 13 months, everybody. What a year. Thanks, Josh, Tiff, and Mods. We'll right back at you. Before we get into the rest of the week's cases, I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but there are reports that over 183 million email passwords have been leaked online, including Gmail. This means that hackers can not only get into your Gmail account, but they could get into any account linked to that account, including shopping sites, banks, and subscriptions, you name it. As someone who uses Gmail every day, I worried, obviously. But then I remembered I'm protected by our sponsor, Aura. Aura provides full digital security so you can feel safe even when leaks like this happen. You get dark web alerts, bank fraud monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, a password manager, and up to $5 million in identity theft insurance all in one app. Try Aura free for 14 days right now. Just go to aura.com/courtroomconfidential. It's free to try. It protects you, and it helps support the show. Prosecutors have filed notice that they no longer plan to seek the death penalty for a woman and her estranged husband accused of having a Microsoft executive gunned down. Shanna Gardner and Mario Fernandez Saldana are charged with murdering Gardner's ex-husband, Jared Brightigan, who was shot in the street shortly after dropping off the two children he shared with her. Brightigan's youngest child was strapped in a car seat at the time and was not harmed. The maximum penalty Gardner and Fernandez now face is life in prison if convicted. Prosecutors did not explain the decision, which comes after the confessed hitman, Harry Tenon, changed his story. Tenon, who pled guilty and agreed to testify that he was hired to kill Bridegan, told his attorneys he is second-guessing his decision to cooperate. Gardner and Fernandez returned to court on Monday, December 8th, for a pretrial hearing. I will tell you this, it's hard enough to secure a death penalty conviction against non-shooters in a case like this, and even more difficult when you have star witness problems. So I think maybe the prosecution did the right thing here. Proud Grisly has been a member for 3 months, everybody, and she says she loves it here. Well, we love having you. And oh my Tosh, thank you for the super chat, says, thank you for keeping me company as I'm weaving it in ends of my latest crochet projects. The most tedious part of crochet. I love that. Very nice. Years after the bodies of a woman and her 2-year-old daughter were found on Long Island, a case once linked to the Gilgo Beach serial murders, the woman's suspected killer appeared before a Florida judge on Thursday. Andrew Dykes, age 66, was arrested near Tampa on a warrant out of Nassau County, New York, and charged with 2 counts of murder in the 1997 death of Tanya Jackson and her daughter Tatiana Dykes. Dykes was believed to be the father of Tatiana Dykes, and his last name is part of how investigators tracked him down, the sources said. He did not enter a plea and is due back in Florida court next week as Nassau County seeks extradition. Jackson was 26 when she was found dismembered in Lakeview in June of 1997. Her 2-year-old daughter was found 14 years later near Gilgo Beach. For years, Jackson, a U.S. Army veteran, was known only as Peaches because of a distinctive tattoo, and her daughter as Baby Doe. In April, New York authorities identified them and announced a $25,000 reward in the case. Tatiana's remains were found in 2011 near where other women were discovered along Long Island's southern shore, leading to speculation that the killings were tied to the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Long Island architect Rex Heuermann was arrested in 2023 and later charged with killing 7 women. Heuermann has never been charged in the deaths of Jackson or her daughter. It's just remarkable to me how the attention given to this Gilgo Beach case and the serial killer is leading to the solving of perhaps other cold crimes. Forrest Nelson says, imagine that after 28 years, hope they got the right guy. Pretty incredible stuff. Alicia K. Mayo says, let's pray for justice. I couldn't agree more. Before we get to what's coming up for next week, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a part of this growing community. But I want to give a very special shout out to Alicia K. Mayo for your review on Facebook, and to our CC crew members, YT Hazel and Gloria S. for your comments on YouTube. We can't thank you enough for your support. Please keep those reviews coming. We appreciate your help in spreading the word about Courtroom Confidential. On the docket for next week, Tyler Robinson, the Utah man accused in the shooting death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, will be in court on Thursday, December 11th for a hearing. And Dustin Duren, the New Hampshire man convicted of murdering Caitlin Nafziger, the mother of his children, will be sentenced on Thursday, December 11th. Finally, Nima Momeni, the California man convicted of murdering Cash App founder Bob Lee in April of 2023, has a status hearing on Friday, December 12th. He has not yet been sentenced following his December 2024 conviction. And finally, please join us for our special question and answer series, Sunday Fun Day. All are invited to leave us a voice message at thecourtroomconfidential.com, which I will answer live during Sunday's show at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. You can catch the live stream on YouTube, X, and Facebook. And that is it for us this week, folks. I am your host, Josh Ritter. You can find us on social media at CR Confidential on X, at The Courtroom Confidential on Instagram, or at thecourtroomconfidential.com. Thank you again for joining me. Have a great weekend, and I will see you again next week for another episode of Courtroom Confidential. All right, you guys are all fantastic. I can't thank you enough for always. The fact that anybody will spend time with us amazes me, and the fact that so many of you show up so regularly every single week is such a treat and such an honor for us. So thank you. Let me give you some quick announcements and then get you guys out of here for the rest of your Friday and your weekend. What did you miss? Well, on Wednesday, we had a really special episode with our friend Scott from Recovery Addict, and we talked about the Brian Walsh case, the first few days of that trial. Scott has been watching it every single day. I got to tell you, it was a great conversation. It's becoming one of the more popular episodes that we've had recently, and it's understandable why that is, because we really had a great chat and talked about a lot of things. Scott catches things that I miss, and I catch some things that he might have missed. So please check that out. It's up on our channel already. Finally, today, over on Fox Nation. And by the way, I found out that Fox Nation is running a special, that they have an introductory price for a subscription that's very, very low. So I encourage you to please check it out. Another reason for that is that I have a weekly show on there along with co-hosts Paul Morrow and Donna Rotuno. It's called the Weekly Rap Sheet, where we kind of do what we do here, where we talk about cases taking place around the country that week. Also some cases coming up, a lot of interesting thoughts, very experienced folks. I really enjoy and I'm honored to be a part of this show. So I encourage you to please check it out. Our second episode is live now on Fox Nation. Please check that out. And then stay tuned. Tomorrow, what is tomorrow? Not tomorrow, Sunday, pardon me. What is Sunday? Sunday is Sunday Fun Day. We're back live at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And we need some messages, guys. We don't have all that many this week. I know it's kind of slow with the holidays and everything else, but if you have a moment, go ahead and go over to thecourtroomconfidential.com, click on that, leave us a message button, ask us a question, and we will answer it live for you this Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Then Monday, we're back for our Monday night true crime docket. As always, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday, we're back for Wednesday Night Live. Special guest this week is Joel Waldman from STS. We had to reschedule with him, but we've got him back this week. And we're going to be talking about all things true crime. I'm sure we're going to be talking about quite a bit of Brian Walsh. That will be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. And finally, on our sister channel, Courtroom Confidential Live Trials, we're going to be covering every single day, gavel to gavel, of the Brian Walsh channel. And starting on Monday will be day 6. They're really getting through this one quickly, but he's going to testify. So stay tuned. That's on our sister channel, Courtroom Confidential Live Trials. Again, thank you all. Thank you all for a wonderful week. Thank you for being the people that you are. Thank you for being a part of this community and making it as wonderful a place as it is. But a special thanks goes out to Afton, Shy Gal, Kathy, and Therapist You Know for being our mods, keeping everybody in line. Afton says it's objection Olive. I think she might be right. All of it on the record, says Therapist You Know. Alicia K. Mayo says Olive Courtroom Confidential. I think we're all in agreement that somehow Olive has to do with it. All of the charges, says Joy W. Can. I love it. If you would like to check out this shirt or any of our other shirts, please check out the shop at thecourtroomconfidential.com. Finally, thank you to Kaylin for making everything run so smoothly. I appreciate you as always. Thank you to the mods, and thank you to Tiffany, because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday, everybody, and we will see you back here on Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.